Take a deep breath, and let's hear a story about Samuel, a gentle craftsman who found healing by creating wooden boats after losing his beloved wife. The coastal town of Bayshore, nestled between rolling emerald hills and a sapphire sea, where gentle waves lapped rhythmically against weathered wooden docks. Samuel Matthews had lived there all his 62 years, his hands worn and calloused from decades of lovingly shaping wood into beautiful objects. His small cottage overlooked the harbor, its windows catching the golden glow of sunrise each morning as seagulls called softly overhead. The salt-tinged breeze would drift through his open windows, carrying the comforting sense of the sea that had always brought him peace. Before the accident, Samuel and his wife Clara had spent evenings on their porch swing, watching boats glide across the harbor as stars appeared one by one in the deepening twilight. Those memories now felt like delicate treasures he could hold only in his mind, precious moments that slipped through his fingers like grains of sand. Clara's laughter had been like wind chimes in the breeze, musical and light, bringing warmth to even the chilliest evenings by the water. Her absence left a silence so profound that Samuel felt it physically, a heaviness in his chest that made even breathing feel like an effort sometimes. Samuel's workshop, once filled with the cheerful sounds of creation and Clara's humming, now stood silent except for the occasional creak of the old wooden beams. Sunlight filtered through dusty windows, illuminating floating motes that danced in the still air like memories refusing to settle. Tools hung neatly on the wall where he had placed them months ago, untouched since the day of the funeral when rain had fallen softly, as if the sky itself wept. His skilled hands, once never idle, now rested uselessly in his lap as he sat in his favorite chair, watching the world continue without her. The townspeople of Bayshore gave Samuel his space, offering quiet nods and occasional plates of food left discreetly on his porch. Mrs. Winters from the bakery would bring warm sourdough bread, its yeasty aroma momentarily cutting through the fog of grief that surrounded him. The children who had once visited eagerly to watch him work now walked past his house with curious but respectful glances, their footsteps softening as they passed his gate. Their parents had explained in hushed tones about Samuel's loss, and even the youngest seemed to understand the gravity of such sadness. One particularly peaceful evening, as golden light stretched across his living room floor, Samuel found himself drawn to a small wooden box Clara had kept on her bedside table. His fingers trembled slightly as he lifted the smooth lid, revealing folded notes and trinkets she had saved over their 40 years together. Among them was a slip of paper with her handwriting, words she had often repeated to him. "Always build, my love, even with empty hands." The familiar curves of her script brought tears to his eyes, but something else stirred within him too, a whisper of the warmth he had once known. That night, Samuel slept more deeply than he had in months, his dreams filled with the gentle sound of Clara's voice and the rhythmic motion of waves against the shore. He woke with the first light of dawn, feeling a lightness in his chest that had been absent for too long. As he sipped his morning tea, watching mist rise from the harbor water, he noticed a group of children playing near the water's edge. Their laughter carried on the morning air, bright and clear like bells, reminding him of simpler times. Something about their carefree joy tugged at a forgotten part of his heart. Samuel found himself walking to his workshop later that morning, dust motes swirling around him as he pushed open the creaking door and let light flood the space. His fingers moved almost of their own accord, brushing across the workbench, feeling the grain of wood scraps left unfinished. The familiar smells of cedar and pine embraced him like old friends, welcoming him back to a world he had nearly forgotten. Something began to shift inside him as he picked up a small piece of driftwood, its surface smoothed by the sea into gentle curves. His craftsman's eye could already see what it might become with careful attention. As Samuel cleared his workbench, memories flooded back, not with the sharp pain he had come to expect, but with a gentle warmth that felt like Clara's hand on his shoulder. He remembered how she had always encouraged the neighborhood children to visit, how her eyes lit up when Samuel taught them about different types of wood. Her voice seemed to whisper in the workshop, "They need something beautiful too, Samuel." His hands, hesitant at first, began to move with growing confidence as he sketched the outline of a small boat on a piece of paper. It would be simple but elegant, something a child could hold and imagine adventures with. The first small boat took shape under Samuel's careful guidance, his skilled fingers remembering the way of things even after months of disuse. The wood seemed to speak to him as he worked, telling him where to carve and smooth, where to leave the natural grain visible. He worked through the afternoon, losing himself in the rhythm of creation, the soft scraping of sandpaper against wood offering a soothing cadence. When evening came, Samuel held up a perfectly formed little sailboat that fit comfortably in the palm of his hand, its proportions true and its lines clean. The next morning, Samuel took his creation to the shore, where he noticed young Lily, the daughter of the local librarian, playing alone by the water. Her face, usually bright with curiosity, seemed downcast as she drew patterns in the sand with a stick. Samuel approached quietly, kneeling beside her with joints that creaked almost as much as his workshop door. "I made something," he said softly, holding out the small wooden sailboat. "Would you like to see if it floats?" Lily's eyes widened with wonder as she gently took the boat, her small fingers tracing the smooth curves of the hull. Together they waded ankle-deep into the cool, clear water, the gentle waves lapping soothingly against their skin as they launched the tiny vessel. Lily's delighted gasp as the boat bobbed perfectly on the surface sent an unexpected surge of joy through Samuel's heart. The morning sun caught the polished wood, making it gleam like something magical upon the water. "It's dancing with the waves," Lily whispered, her voice filled with awe as she carefully held the string attached to the boat. Samuel found himself smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in months. Word spread quickly through the small town about Samuel's gift to Lily, carried on the gentle breeze of gossip that flowed through Bay Shore like the tide. The next day, 2 more children appeared at his workshop door, their hopeful faces peering in with shy curiosity. The day after brought 3 more, each with eyes full of wonder at the treasures they saw taking shape under Samuel's patient hands. Each evening, Samuel would guide them to the water, where they launched their boats with squeals of delight that seemed to lift the heavy fog from his heart. He began to notice things again, the particular quality of afternoon light on water, the different songs of birds at dusk. Clara's words, "always build even with empty hands," now hung on Samuel's workshop wall, written in his own careful script on a piece of smooth driftwood. The letters caught the morning light through the now clean windows, casting gentle shadows across his workbench each day. As Samuel taught the children about different woods and tools, about patience and vision, he felt Clara's presence like a warm embrace around the room. The workshop, once a shrine to his grief, had transformed into a sanctuary of creation and sharing, filled with the scents of fresh-cut wood and lemon oil, the sounds of children's questions, and his own rediscovered laughter. Summer unfurled gently over Bayshore, bringing longer days filled with golden light that stretched into soft lavender evenings. Samuel's workshop had become a gathering place for children who came after school. Their backpacks dropped carelessly by the door as they rushed to see what new project awaited them. The once silent space now hummed with activity, the rhythmic sound of sandpaper against wood, the careful tapping of small hammers, and most precious of all, the melody of children's voices sharing stories and dreams. Samuel found himself sleeping deeply each night, lulled by pleasant exhaustion and the satisfaction of work well done. What had begun as simple toy boats had evolved into more elaborate creations, each child now working on vessels uniquely their own. Samuel guided their small hands with infinite patience, teaching them to feel the grain of the wood, to work with its natural beauty rather than against it. "The wood will tell you what it wants to become," he would say, repeating words Clara had once spoken to him. The children would close their eyes, running their fingers over smooth surfaces with expressions of deep concentration that made Samuel's heart swell with affection. Their trust in his guidance was a gift he treasured more with each passing day. On particularly warm afternoons, Samuel would lead his small fleet of apprentices down to the shore, where they would test their creations on the gentle waters of the protected cove. The scent of salt water mingled with the sweet aroma of the wild roses that grew along the path, creating a perfume that seemed to clear the mind and open the senses. The soft sand would warm their bare feet as they carefully carried their precious boats to the water's edge. Parents began to gather to watch these expeditions, their faces softening as they observed the joy their children found in these simple pleasures. Young Lily, who had received the very first boat, had become Samuel's most dedicated student. Her delicate fingers had developed surprising strength and dexterity as she worked the wood, her attention to detail remarkable for a child of just 8 years. One afternoon, as the other children raced ahead to the water, Lily lingered behind with Samuel, her small hand slipping naturally into his weathered one. "My grandmother is very sick," she said quietly, her eyes on the path ahead. "She can't come outside anymore to see the water, and it makes her sad." Samuel felt a familiar ache in his chest, the echo of his own loss resonating with the child's worry. That evening, long after the children had gone home, Samuel sat on his porch watching the stars appear one by one in the deepening blue sky. Lily's words turned in his mind like smooth stones in a tumbling river, gradually revealing their shape and purpose. Clara had always said that boats were more than just vessels. They were carriers of dreams, hope given physical form. His fingers tapped thoughtfully on the arm of his chair as the nearly full moon rose over the water, casting a silver pathway across the gently rippling surface. The cool night air carried the distant sound of music from the town square, where people gathered on summer evenings to share community and simple pleasures. The next morning dawned misty and cool, with pearls of dew clinging to spider webs strung between fence posts like natural dream catchers. Samuel woke with purpose, his mind clear and focused on a new vision. After his usual breakfast of toast and tea, he walked not to his workshop, but to the local lumber yard, where the owner greeted him with pleased surprise. "Something special in mind, Samuel?" the man asked, noting the thoughtful expression on the craftsman's face. "Something very special indeed," Samuel replied, selecting pieces of cedar and pine with careful attention, inhaling their fresh, resinous scent with appreciation. For the next week, Samuel worked alone from dawn until dusk, his workshop door uncharacteristically closed to his young apprentices. The children gathered outside, pressing curious faces to the windows until their parents called them away with gentle reminders about respecting Samuel's privacy. Inside, something magical was taking shape, larger than any boat he had created before, yet still small enough to pass through doorways. Samuel worked with renewed vigor, his skilled hands remembering techniques long unused, but never forgotten. Each evening he would sit on his porch with a cup of herbal tea, muscles pleasantly tired, listening to the rhythmic song of crickets as twilight deepened around him. When the project was complete, Samuel invited Lily to the workshop, watching with quiet joy as her eyes widened at the sight of his creation. Before them stood a beautiful miniature sailboat, large enough to hold a small adult, crafted with such attention to detail that it seemed ready to set sail on real waters. The polished wood gleamed warmly in the afternoon light streaming through the windows, highlighting the intricate carvings along the sides, delicate waves and tiny seabirds in flight. "It's for your grandmother," Samuel explained gently, kneeling to meet Lily's eyes. So she can feel the joy of sailing, even from inside her home. The day they delivered the boat to Lily's grandmother remains etched in Samuel's memory like a perfect seashell preserved in amber. 4 of the older children helped carry the vessel through town, drawing curious onlookers who followed the procession to the small cottage where the elderly woman lived. Her bedroom window had been specially widened for the occasion, allowing the boat to be placed half inside and half outside on the porch, creating the illusion that she was truly setting sail. The look of wonder that transformed her tired face as she ran her hands over the smooth wood brought tears to every eye present. Tears not of sadness, but of recognition of something purely beautiful. Word of the special boat spread through Bayshore like wildfire, carried on the gentle winds of conversation from porch to porch, shop to shop. Soon, Samuel found requests coming from the hospital, the nursing home, and families with members unable to visit the shore. Each story touched his heart in different ways. The veteran who had once sailed the world's oceans but was now confined to a wheelchair. The young boy recovering from surgery who dreamed of adventures at sea. The elderly couple who had met on a sailboat 60 years ago and wished to celebrate their anniversary with a reminder of that day. Each request became a sacred trust that Samuel and his young apprentices approached with reverence and creativity. As summer deepened into early autumn, bringing cooler breezes and leaves tinged with gold and crimson, Samuel's project had grown into something none could have imagined. The children now called themselves the Hope Fleet, wearing simple blue scarves as they worked alongside their mentor. Together they had created over 20 specialized boats for people throughout the community, each vessel uniquely designed for its recipient. Local businesses began donating materials, and parents volunteered to help with deliveries. The town council even designated a special workshop space in the community center where larger projects could be undertaken during the coming winter months. Samuel found himself changed in ways both subtle and profound as the seasons shifted around him. His shoulders, once perpetually hunched with grief, now stood straight and strong as he guided young hands in their work. The lines in his face, which had deepened into crevices of sorrow after Clara's passing, now gathered around his eyes when he smiled, which he did often and with genuine feeling. Most nights he slept deeply, lulled by the pleasant fatigue of meaningful work, and wrapped in dreams where Clara walked beside him, her smile approving and proud. On occasion, he would still wake with tears on his cheeks, but they no longer felt like acid burning his soul. Rather, They were gentle acknowledgments of love that transcended physical presence. One crisp September evening, as golden light slanted through the trees and cast long shadows across the workshop floor, Mayor Thompson arrived with an unexpected proposal. The town's annual harvest festival was approaching, the first since Clara's passing, and the council wished to honor Samuel's work with a special exhibition. "We'd like to display photographs of all the boats you and the children have created, alongside stories from the recipients," the mayor explained, his voice warm with genuine appreciation. "Clara always loved the festival," he added gently, "and I think she would be proud to see how you've transformed your grief into something that heals our entire community." The morning of the harvest festival arrived wrapped in mist that gradually burned away to reveal a sky of perfect autumn blue. Samuel stood at his bedroom window, watching golden light spill across the harbor water like honey, setting the small boats anchored there aglow. The familiar ache of missing Clara was present. It always would be, but now it nested alongside newer feelings. Pride in what he and the children had accomplished. Gratitude for the purpose that had found him when he needed it most. His fingers traced the wooden window frame that he had crafted decades ago, feeling the subtle imperfections that made it uniquely his work, just as life's hardships had shaped him into who he was today. The festival grounds hummed with activity as Samuel arrived, the air rich with the scents of cinnamon, apples, and wood smoke from fire pits where lunch would later be prepared. Volunteers hung colorful banners between trees whose leaves had begun their transformation into brilliant golds and reds. The exhibition space, a large tent at the center of the grounds, had been transformed overnight. Photographs of Samuel's boats and their new homes lined the walls, each accompanied by handwritten notes from recipients describing what the gifts had meant to them. At the entrance stood a life-sized portrait of Clara that Samuel had not seen before, her eyes sparkling with the joy he remembered so well. "We found it in the town archives," Mayor Thompson explained softly, watching emotion play across Samuel's face. "It was taken at the festival 5 years ago when Clara was judging the pie contest." Samuel nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat as he gazed at his wife's image. She wore the blue scarf she had loved, the same shade the children now wore as members of the Hope Fleet. The mayor placed a gentle hand on Samuel's shoulder before moving away to attend to festival duties, leaving him alone with the portrait and his memories. The canvas seemed to capture not just Clara's appearance, but her essence, her kindness, her quiet strength, the way she could find joy in the simplest things. Throughout the day, people streamed through the exhibition, their voices hushed with respect and wonder as they read the stories accompanying each photograph. Samuel watched from a quiet corner, his heart full as he observed townspeople wiping away tears or breaking into smiles of recognition. Lily's grandmother had been brought in her wheelchair, regally surveying the crowd like a queen on her throne, occasionally reaching out to touch the hands of those who stopped to speak with her. The young boy from the hospital ran from picture to picture with boundless energy, his recent surgery leaving no visible trace beyond a determination to experience everything the festival offered. By mid-afternoon, the children of the Hope Fleet gathered at the exhibition entrance, their blue scarves bright against the autumn colors surrounding them. They had prepared a surprise for Samuel, a model of Bayshore Harbor crafted under the secret guidance of local artists, complete with tiny boats representing each one they had built together. As they presented their gift, Samuel knelt among them, his weathered hands accepting their offering with the reverence it deserved. "You have given me so much more than I could ever give you," he told them, his voice rich with emotion as the children pressed close around him. Later, as golden afternoon light slanted through the exhibition tent, creating pools of warmth on the wooden floor, Samuel found himself surrounded by people whose lives had been touched by the boats. They shared stories he hadn't heard before, how Lily's grandmother now held court from her special boat each afternoon, regaling visitors with tales of her youth, how the veteran had started teaching maritime history to children who visited him, using his boat as a tangible teaching tool, how the young boy recovering from surgery had slept beside his boat each night in the hospital, drawing strength from its solid presence during painful procedures. As evening approached, bringing with it a gentle coolness that invited sweaters and scarves, the festival transformed into a wonderland of twinkling lights strung between trees and along pathways. Musicians gathered in the gazebo, their melodies floating across the grounds like benevolent spirits. Samuel found himself drawn to the harbor's edge, where the water reflected the festival lights and the first stars appearing in the deepening blue sky. The rhythmic sound of small waves lapping against the shore brought a profound sense of peace, a reminder that some things remained constant, even as life changed around them. Mayor Thompson joined him there, the two men standing in comfortable silence for several minutes before the mayor spoke. "The council has a proposition for you, Samuel," he said finally, his voice blending harmoniously with the gentle water sounds. "We'd like to establish a permanent workshop program at the community center Clara's fleet of hope, with you as the master craftsman and teacher." He turned to look at Samuel, his expression earnest in the gathering twilight. "You've shown us all how healing can happen when we create beauty together, when we build connections through meaningful work." Samuel watched a fishing boat returning to harbor, its lights swaying gently with the motion of the waves, creating dancing reflections on the dark water. He thought of Clara's words, "Always build, even with empty hands," and how they had guided him from the depths of his grief toward this moment of possibility. The air around him felt charged with potential, with the promise of days filled with purpose and the joyful noise of children learning to create. The heaviness that had once made each day a struggle to survive had transformed into something different, not gone completely, but changed into a weight that anchored him rather than drowning him. "I think Clara would have loved that idea," Samuel replied finally, his voice steady and warm as he turned to face the mayor. The older man's features soft with relief and pleasure as Samuel continued. "But I'd like to suggest one change. Let's call it simply the Fleet of Hope." Clara never wanted recognition for her kindness. She believed good works should ripple outward on their own. The mayor nodded in understanding, and the two men sealed the agreement with a handshake as stars multiplied overhead, their light reaching them from unimaginable distances, just as Clara's love continued to guide Samuel across the distance of her absence. That night, as Samuel walked home along the shore path, the sound of gentle waves accompanied his steps like a soothing lullaby. The festival lights grew distant behind him, but ahead his cottage windows glowed with welcoming warmth, no longer a shrine to what he had lost, but a home filled with possibilities for what lay ahead. The cool evening air carried the scents of salt water, pine, and the faintest hint of wood smoke wrapping around him like a comfortable blanket. His body felt pleasantly tired from the day's activities, each muscle relaxed and ready for rest, his mind calm and centered in the present moment. He paused at his garden gate, looking up at the vast canopy of stars stretched across the night sky, feeling small yet significant beneath their ancient light. A sense of profound gratitude washed over him, for Clara's love that continued to guide him, for the children who had brought laughter back into his life, for the community that had given him space to grieve and then welcomed him back with open arms. Tomorrow would bring new boats to build, new skills to teach, new connections to forge. But tonight was for quiet appreciation of the journey that had brought him here, to this moment of contentment that felt both earned and freely given. Inside his home, Samuel moved through familiar evening routines with mindful attention, brewing chamomile tea that filled the kitchen with its soothing fragrance, turning down the covers of his bed, placing Clara's photograph where moonlight could touch it through the window. As he settled beneath soft blankets, listening to the distant rhythm of waves that had accompanied every night of his life, Samuel felt the sweet weight of sleepiness beginning to claim him. His last conscious thought before drifting into dreams was one of perfect peace, the understanding that even in our deepest grief, We carry within us the capacity for renewal, for building beauty from the wreckage of loss, for finding our way back to joy one small boat at a time. Samuel's final thought as sleep embraced him completely was not of sorrow, but of Clara's smile and the knowledge that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to honor her memory through creation and connection. His breathing slowed to match the rhythm of the distant waves. His body relaxed completely into restful slumber, his spirit at peace with both what he had lost and what he had found. In the gentle darkness of night, past and future existed in perfect balance, and Samuel slept more soundly than he had in years, wrapped in dreams of wooden boats sailing on sunlit waters, carrying hope from shore to shore under an endless sky of possibilities.